I wrote that. I'm such a genius. Oh, hey.
Oh, you're not going to show it off when it goes to your camera?
Well, oh, sorry. I had to put my Sesame Street Writers Room book down. Welcome back to, what is this thing called?
He erased the part up top where it says gift shop edition.
Just put a bunch of black tape over it.
All right.
Travis, you get that in the gift shop?
All the pages are blank in there. We haven't seen.
Right. Yeah. Please tell me that's a skin. Is that a skin you've put on several of those? Did you do anything while you were in New York other than frustrate us on the stream? Oh my God.
The entire time I'm just standing outside the studios of Sesame Street, afraid to go in.
Those pictures of the lobby broke through security.
What you don't see me is cropped out as the two security guards that was chasing me up the stairway.
Is that guy masturbating to Big Bird again? Do you feel good now?
Do you feel good?
I feel great.
Okay, let's get to it then.
What are we getting to?
Well, we had a great weekend, but one person had an even better weekend than all of us.
I think let's get to some faces.
Oh, yes. Like, of course, when I was in that beautiful city of New York, I would do the show from my live studio, a.k.a. very old apartment. And
seemed pleasant.
There were moments where the screen didn't behave. The feed didn't do what it was supposed to do, and my face would often freeze.
Yeah, we got some.
And Gardner has some still shots of those moments.
Yeah, and some others as well. So let's run through them here.
Fire this bad boy up.
Face off.
Look at that New York face.
Stereotype.
Who loves orange soda? Travis
Look
loves
at
orange
Chris's
soda.
face.
Chris so jealous. He's so jealous.
He's so happy.
Look how much I'm sweating.
That was a good-looking shirt on me in that photo.
Man.
Somebody said something. Oh, and now you're yelling.
I'm yelling at somebody.
Privilege was the word that came out. That's
what
what
it is.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I think I'm shocked by my score.
Oh, look at that.
Look at
What's
Chris.
your lips
Hey,
doing
director of entertainment, Jason
Your lips
Pippi.
doing? Oh,
Oh, that's
Who's
me
that?
walking through the streets.
that was a world star, right?
Oh.
That was
there
a
it
moment.
was.
Look at me.
Ah!
That was me.
Carly and Barb, what do you know?
That was me at Union Station in Chicago. I tried my
Oh,
damnness.
gosh.
Hey, look. Welcome back, Travis. Aw, look how jealous Chris is. He's like looking down, like trying
Trying to
not
do a live
enjoy
read
it.
and keep the show on the air.
Oh, God.
Look at that tan.
Look, chocolate, just dipping in some ice cream.
And then this one.
Am I ever happy? Is this what you guys deal with on a daily basis?
Blame Denman for Trump.
Just
One
a
of my favorite
lump?
hashtags.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Blame Denman for Trump. Nice. Nice. Is this a still shot?
No, this is real.
Oh, okay, that's live.
This
okay,
is
that's
real,
kind of
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I was telling I finally got a conversation with my parents over the weekend about, of course, my time in New York.
I finally told you about the birds and the bees.
They got back into
They
town.
finally got it to
I
you.
got back into town
Good
like
for
on
you, man.
Sunday.
Good
and
for you.
It's like, hey, what's good? And I was explaining to them about just you showing those photos of me sweating was funny because I was in the buildings in New York are beautiful, but they're very old. And I kind of came up with this theory. I think coupled with climate change and human laziness, the world as we know it will collapse upon us.
Is this a like theoretical physics?
Because
thing?
I'm
What are you
thinking
talking
about, because if you look at things like the infrastructure in New York is very old and very difficult to upkeep.
You're talking about humankind.
Yes.
You're not talking about the planet.
Well, I'm thinking as
So-
far as humankind contributing to
But here's what
its downfall, which
here's
we
what you
all
have
are
to
very much
realize
well
with
aware
climate
of.
change and global warming is the planet's going to survive. The planet's going to be
Oh,
okay.
we're just a fever.
Yes.
What it's
They'll
going to
shake
do
us.
is destroy us.
Yes.
The planet's going to be around.
Yes, and I think what we're doing, we're giving it a volley. Like we're setting
in a
it
different
up
form.
to knock us out. Like it's fascinating. Like I just think this. Like I love New York, but I realize also this infrastructure like is teetering. Like it's like there's one small incident away from it creating catastrophe. Like that subway goes underwater. Like that subway goes in from Brooklyn into Manhattan, and it goes underwater.
They have I mean, that's a big issue for them.
That's a
Their
huge issue.
infrastructure. You're just talking about the subway. They have larger issues than that even. Like infrastructure in New York City itself is shit. Right now.
Absolutely.
It is bad.
It is, and that's the scary thing about it. So you're talking about, you would imagine that with the weather getting warmer, then I think it was just a recent study that was released actually over the weekend about it being one of I think last month was the hottest month on record. And so you couple that, of course, with older infrastructure. Like you're leading to, it feels like it's a lead up to chaos. If we are in the first act of The Day After Tomorrow, can we at least acknowledge that? Because everything is starting to come together. Not to be Mr. Fearmonger,
it won't be
but
like
it makes
that.
sense. But I feel like what we're seeing as far as weak infrastructure, changing of the weather, overcrowding, like there are things that are just leading us down that road of catastrophe. And I think we are lucky and in some ways blessed to not have like a situation where we happened in Minnesota years ago with the bridges collapsing. Like I think we're fortunate as a country to not have had more incidents like that, because the infrastructure in some of our major cities are really, and I only picked up on it as I was traveling through New York, and I realized, man, these are beautiful buildings. And then I go,
you can see it here.
Man, that's old. Like the Brooklyn Bridge, beautiful structure, absolutely amazing. And then you go, it's been here for about a good 120 years. I don't think anybody's kind of spackled. I don't know if anybody has lined some things up recently.
In some instances,
Everybody
they do
spire shit.
They do fantastic
what are they
upkeep
supposed to do?
on certain things.
Right.
Even if they're old, they do fantastic upkeep on certain ones. There's
On
other
certain ones, right.
That are just there. You can see what can happen.
Right, we looked at let's look at the Compton Bridge. It's one of those things
It's
where
got
you're
to
just
be
like,
replaced completely.
absolutely. Just because you paved over it, like it was funny because the Uber driver made the same comment. He was like, they have to tear this down, right? I was like, I feel like we're really playing with fire. And I know I don't want to sound like a person that's like,
I mean, they're
the
literally
sky is
doing
falling.
Band-Aids. They're just covering up the potholes.
Yes.
Once or twice a year.
But that's what I'm saying. So we also know city funding has been reduced over major cities. So we know the cities aren't spending that much money on infrastructure as well. Look, how many times has President Trump tried to have an infrastructure week? He's tried to have an infrastructure week for three years, and he's a.
Did you want to thank him?
I would not like to.
I've heard audio evidence of you thanking him before.
But
I'm not going to play that one today.
Press.
I will not. I will not play that one today.
But I will say, I think that's the thing. Like, I love these beautiful big cities, but there's a moment of pause that comes over me when I see like, yeah, that's been around since like 1867, and I don't know how much upkeep that's had. Maybe we should.
What's the warranty on that?
Right.
How's that? Did General, I don't know,
Well,
Sherman Thomas Jefferson IV guarantee this bridge when he and his troops built it?
Like we shoot fireworks from bridges. I feel like that's not. I think that's. I think it's cool. Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
but I feel
fire.
like we shouldn't be shooting fireworks from bridges. I think there are just certain things that we're aiding to. Maybe fireworks.
Bridges that were originally intended to be like, whoa, there'll be 40 horses every morning across this.
Exactly.
They got 18-wheelers on them now.
Carrying
40 horses.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that's the only scary thing about New York was for me was like, man, this is a beautiful oh dear God. I hope the wind doesn't shift one way one day and completely ruin this all.
You saw it here when that water main break on Lindell.
Yes.
Over by the mansions there, and then they're looking and, okay, this piping. Oh, it might have been here since the World's Fair. Like, yeah. And then you keep building on top of it.
Yes.
What do you think's going to happen?
And as humans,
that's why you're supposed to be proactive in terms of taking care of infrastructure so you can build on top.
Like even like these, us millennials will buy these, especially in Brooklyn, where they'll buy these very expensive brownstones that are obviously very beautiful but very old, and then we modernize it and we're putting pool tables and workout equipment in there, and what we're doing just to these old buildings. I'm just like, we're kind of just asking for it to collapse on top of us, aren't we?
Well, that's good, though, that you're able to recycle a building like that, though. That's
True.
what you want.
True.
And that's, like, a lot of cities now, or, like, even when you're doing new development, are asking you to try to take in some of the old infrastructure with it. I actually had this discussion with someone over the weekend because a hotel I stayed in last September in Chicago, the Viceroy, It's a new building. They built it from the ground up, but they took part of the old infrastructure as part of their lobby.
Right.
So you're incorporating even that. Even if you're building new, you're trying to take some of the old in with the new.
Right.
In some places. In some instances, vacant lots and that, they're just completely.
And to Chris's point, he said warranty. That's funny because I believe like the architects back in the day would say, these buildings can last 150 years. And you go,
This bridge can
that was
withstand-
150 years ago. I think it's about that time. Don't you think, everyone?
That's right. This bridge can withstand the musket shot of a 70 men.
I just like,
That's one click of a gun now, partner.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
It's 3 draft horses could cross this, pulling 7 bales of hay.
I'm interested in this voice.
I like it.
It's not bad.
I like it.
Yeah.
Can we?
I didn't say Clydesdales either. Maybe they're Belgian draft horses.
Is this Denman Prospector?
that's
Denman
right.
the Prospector.
I'll do it
No,
by the whiskers of my bolo tie.
Prospector's
This will
a
be the
little different.
greatest Brit. Yeah, this is the Prospector's boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At
You sound
least
like you sound like a Pinkerton. Is that what they called them?
Prospectors more.
Will Ferrell's old prospector voice will forever, in a way, be the perfect prospector voice. I'm up in the hills. I found it.
Yeah, that's more prospector.
I'm out of sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
I've moved on to the whiskey.
Chris's original one had
Sarsaparilla.
more elitism, was more cosmopolitan.
A
A
very
little more,
cosmopolitan,
right? He
yeah.
sourced the steel beams that were the first ever steel beams made. These are from Pittsburgh. That's right.
I was in an old structure over the weekend,
Or was it?
the Missouri History Museum.
Ah, beautiful building. Beautiful
It is
building.
beautiful.
And what were you there for?
They have a beautiful exhibit. As you know, we had Robert Cohen of the Post-Dispatch on last Tuesday
Word.
to talk about what he does on a day-to-day basis, but also to promote and preview the Pulitzer Prize photography exhibit at the History Museum. I scooted on over there,
Look at you.
pulled up next to the loop trolley stop.
Scoot, scoot.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Walked in there, went and watched the panel that they had. They had a panel of photographers going on.
Insightful?
It was good.
Any gems?
I'm glad
Anything
they're
that stood out
waiting.
to you?
They're waiting to do a panel, in particular on Ferguson, because you could see even at times the questioning started leaning that way. People want to know about that. About
iconic
what,
photo.
Yeah. I mean the
It's an
one
iconic moment.
the one Robert took, and then what others took as well. But the one Robert took was up in the exhibit.
And what a fun conversation that was last week. And
was
we
so
can't
good.
thank Robert enough for being able to take the time to do that. This photo, and we talked about it on the show. I don't know. I'm biased for several reasons, especially being in the moment. But I think this is one of the most iconic photos, certainly of our generation, but certainly of the last 25 years. I think this encapsulates so much. And this, I don't think you can get a better time. This reminds me of the Ali Liston, where like the shot of Ali over it, like it happened so fast. Like it like that moment where you have Ali standing over
I mean, that
Liston
might be the greatest sports photo of all time.
easily. And then if you see it in real time, it's literally that where Ali has his right fist over his chest, standing over Sonny Liston. That was like a split second. And so it's very difficult to capture those moments.
Yeah.
And when you do, my God,
Yeah.
that shot. I honestly, I kid you not, I would, and it has been done by so. I can't wait to get a commission for my own home because it's just such a
Yeah.
powerful photo.
I went to the panel. What?
We had somebody leave a comment that said I'd put up his name and all this, and long story short, someone gave his name and said he's deceased and he's more than a photo. And I was just so disappointed, and I wanted to say something really mean back, but I didn't. And I just said, "Did you happen to hear the interview?"
The actual conversation.
The actual
the
conversation.
piece of this
Yeah.
where the man was memorialized for 20 minutes of a 50-minute conversation.
Talk about his life,
I just
what he meant.
And of
Discuss how
course,
that photo
I-
actually made life
correct.
hard for him.
and
Right.
I all I did was politely say, "Thanks for that. Did you happen to hear it?" No response. That's the kind of stuff that just makes me want to
No, it's,
Yeah.
just be very upset with people.
So I went through the Pulitzer part after the panel. The panel was great. Like I said, some of the questions did
Kinda
start
lean
going
towards
there.
her, yep.
And that makes sense. So it's good they're doing on the 21st. They're doing another panel specifically on Ferguson.
okay.
So I after the panel, I went through the Pulitzer part. I haven't gone through the local part yet, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch photos.
Oh, it's that big of an exhibit. Wow.
I didn't have time afterwards.
Right.
Because I took my time going through the Pulitzer part.
Oh, okay.
And people asked me
I have to check that out today.
at the watering hole what I thought, and I just said, well, it was gripping. I mean, and these are photos, some of them you're accustomed to. And iconic is the word that you're going to hear.
Are there?
Because
Are these photos? I'm just trying to. And
some
the reason why
some
I'm
of them are you're familiar with.
Okay.
Like,
and now, as far as like, not to go into too much detail, but are they suitable for everyone? Those photos?
Not for kids, not
Okay.
necessarily.
All right.
I
Okay.
mean, this is
Just curious.
I tweeted it out. I left in an interesting mood afterwards
Interesting.
because it, like, you're gonna see the ones you know, like
Okay.
the flag on Iwo Jima.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see that one. You're gonna see this shot of Ruth retiring.
All of
Babe
these
Ruth.
and all these great photos are just like at the timing of
Yeah.
these photos.
Well, speaking of timing, I mean, you're gonna see the one that grabs right as Jack Ruby's shooting and killing Lee Harvey Oswald. Like those three right there, you recognize those immediately. There are other ones that you're not going to, but I mean, it runs the gamut of war, civil war, assassinations, famine, natural disasters, acts of terror. I saw one with the flag being used as a weapon. And there's racial attacks. There's one on a football field, a racial attack on a football field that I wasn't even aware of.
Interesting.
I think it was Drake versus Oklahoma A&M. And it's like
Young Money.
the first black player on the field at Oklahoma A&M, and they catch the first play of the game. The photographer did. No cameras are there or anything like that, where they decked the guy, the black guy who's the running back, and they did it a number of other times, and the ball's nowhere near him when this is happening.
Jeez.
And they broke his jaw throughout, and I was not aware of like things like that. So it'll get to you.
Interesting.
Because there's an assassination one in Tokyo where a samurai sword is used on a politician, and they catch it right as the guy's getting ready to plunge it into the guy's chest. So I mean, I walked out of there just
wow.
like, man, we've been treating each other bad for a long, long time.
Oh,
we
God,
are
everybody.
shit.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Yeah.
shit as humanity. And I ran into Robert while I was in there.
Right.
And he was like, so what do you think? And I was like, well, number one, the 60s were something.
God, yes.
There were a lot of war. There's a lot of
Assassinations.
assassinations.
Rough.
There's
It's
unrest.
rough.
I mean, you think peace and love. The reason people wanted peace and love is because you saw the effed up shit that was going on around you.
Yeah.
I can understand why you would want nothing more than that. It makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But the 60s, that's early on in the display, and it's just like, holy Jesus. But I told him, I go, there's a couple of photos here that are supposed to be joyous, and then you read more about them as you're in there.
Mhm.
Like there's this one right here. This is a prisoner of war who's coming back, and he's on the tarmac after landing, and his family's coming running to him.
Right.
You're like, okay.
This is a great moment.
This is supposed to be a great. It's called
he
Burst
did-
of Joy.
He
Burst
didn't
of
father
Joy.
all those kids. It was his neighbor.
Well, you
And
see
that's
the
his
wife in the background smiling. As you read on about the photo, you're told 18 months before this particular moment she had filed for divorce, and they were divorced several weeks later after this photo.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what the F, man? I'm going through all these these
Wow.
terrible
Okay.
moments.
That's a cold water moment.
Now, are you comfortable with seeing birth? Are you okay with
Sure.
this? Okay.
Makes me sick.
I have. Okay. Well,
Chris, close
this
your
is
eyes.
called Moment of Life. A guy followed around this couple. He was given permission for a year because it was when Lamaze was becoming a thing.
Oh, wow.
So the father there is the coach. So this is a new thing. And this is the moment of life. See the happiness on the mother's face and such.
Well, that's interesting.
Chris is going to throw up, it looks like. I'll take the photo down. But as you read on about that couple and that photo,
Right.
you find out that not long after that child's birth, the couple divorced, and the mother married the person who took the photo.
Oh.
Why did he want to be in the room?
Oh, so he got to look at the goods and was like, "Yo, baby girl, let's holler at your boy."
You gotta. All photographers have a little bit of that. All male photographers that are heterosexual have a taste of that. Like, if you literally look the other way, they're gonna be like, "So what's up?" What's
So
going
basically,
on?
she married the first club photographer.
So it was.
Hey, baby girl, I'll take pictures. Want to holler at me?
I told Robert this. I'm going. Even the ones that are supposed to be good, I'm reading up on them. I'm like, what the hell? So this is partially why I left in an interesting mood, because I'm like, okay, here's some good ones.
Right.
Because we gravitate towards the worst. That's how it is.
Gardner.
That's right.
Gardner, do you have?
Oh boy. I have one more,
Sure,
but I'm gonna wait.
Please go ahead. As long as I'm right there, I will throw up if there's another childbirth or anything involving human excrement. I'll vomit on air. So for the clicks, I hope it's something gross.
Can you look at something with famine, or not?
I don't really. Yeah, they did it themselves. so-
Travis. It's called starvation in Sudan.
Chris is having a Bill Maher moment this morning. Good God.
Well, they didn't really try very hard, did they?
Now there's this one,
Okay, that's
which
horrific.
is famine,
It's a vulture.
Kick that fucking bird.
and
He ain't dead.
you find out that the person who took this picture, his name was Kevin Carter, and
Defensive end for your
Yeah.
St. Louis Rams.
there was some discussion after the
He
photo
sacked
was
that bird.
taken. Like it became like a discussion of should a photographer intervene at that point.
Of course.
And
Similar to the conversation we have with Robert.
Right, and that's a good conversation to have, because I see this photo and as I'm reading on, like, it's a terrible situation.
Right.
And that's when you're trying to just document things
Right.
and not involve yourself. What do you do?
Then you're
Right.
human.
Right. So that's a tough thing to answer.
Right.
And you find out that there were regrets with this photographer after
Interesting.
that, after documenting for
Especially
number of
when you
months.
involve children.
So it was 3 months later that the photographer who took that Pulitzer Prize winning photo took his own life,
No.
because he couldn't handle having been there, seen that, and not doing anything.
What are you gonna do? I mean,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what
you can shoo the bird away.
But I think to the point where we had the conversation with Robert, I think it's a very fine line. Very fine line.
it's not easy to answer.
It's not easy, and there isn't a right or wrong way to go about it, and I think that's what makes it even more difficult, because while indeed it's not his objective, it's not his job, and he is human, even if he does intervene, is him intervening actually helping?
Well, that's what I'm
Is
gonna
he
say.
going to make matters worse? Like the
Give-
question is,
give
what
that kid some water and some food, and then the warlord that was standing 10 for the others chops 18 people's hands off for
exactly?
talking
You
to the
don't
white
know,
devil.
right? You don't know the
Which you
ramifications.
can see those photos too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it runs the gamut of humanity. But what left me in a bitter, I don't know, melancholy mood was I think the ones that were supposed to be joyous, as you read more, you're like, life is complex.
Which is
So these are snapshots. There were also ones that did everyday moments. There's a photographer out of Chicago who captured life in Chicago, but was capturing it in projects. And high school track teams there
Wow, really?
There's a kiosk dedicated to this one, because it wasn't just one. They have one photo, and it's this, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's an infamous project in Chicago. But it's kids playing in the sunlight.
like
and then
Cabrini
they're-
Green, maybe.
Actually, it was. That's
Cabrini
it.
Green?
That's
Okay.
exactly it. But also documenting like a high school there that has a track team that was a very good track team, but they had no track. They would train within the halls of the school, and they're running around. So it documents. It's not just one photo; it's a series. It's not a
I see.
moment.
It
is
is
actually everyday life.
Interesting.
So those ones, I think, I did gravitate towards that, because to me that's it, because you're looking at snapshots of moments in some of these without realizing all the story, where something like that explains life.
That's
And
social-
that was
that's-
actually a little bit, that helped some, because even, like I said, I'm looking at some of these are supposed to be celebratory, and I'm like, well, why'd you have to tell me that for? Why'd you have to tell me the truth?
social media. Social media is the second by second version of this, by the way. You only get one little snippet of what's happening.
I do have one more for Travis.
Okay, and then I have a suggestion.
Okay.
That I don't know if you can pull on the fly, but
This is called Historic Campaign.
Nice.
The way that
Oh,
it's
boy.
shot, so it's Obama in a black jacket, but the way that either water is falling
It's
on him or
raining.
okay, it's raining. It makes it look like it has one of those fringy feels to it. So it feels like Obama is like bringing out the Neville brothers or something. It's one of those ranch style.
I think this.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think
Wanna
this was.
say that?
I want to say
Like
this had to
fringy
have been.
black jackets?
I think this had to have been during the 2007s. This just kind of gives you an idea as to what the
Looks young.
presidency does to him. Look how young Obama is.
This
in
is right before he became president.
Yeah, so definitely
several weeks before.
Okay, so this is 2008, and so the president
No gray
now
hair.
who looks great, mind you, for his age, but it just gives you an idea how the presidency just ages you. It's just fascinating. But Chris, I'm glad you brought that point up about how it's like everyday social media. Gardner and I were talking about this a little bit off the air. To that point about waning yourself off of social media because you get those photos, you get those moments, and then you get context behind it. And when you're inundated with that constantly, every day, on the hour, it does get to you. And I never want to be the guy that alerts the world that I'm leaving social media, I'm done. And by no means am I going to be able to
Then you
quit
wait
that
and
cold
see how many
turkey.
people respond.
Right. How many likes did that get?
Maybe I'll stick around.
Right. But I have recently just a whole host of reasons why. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to try to either focus or keep yourself emotionally stable if you constantly refresh your social media feed. So I have taken it upon myself to just slowly pull back from it because even the things that you enjoy are now few and far between. Like I used to enjoy the silly dances and the rap music or, just the funny incidents and the hop and the hips.
Sean
Right.
dancing at the jukebox.
But yeah, it was a lot. There were a lot of things that certainly when we started social media, at least when I started on Twitter in 2009, 2010, where it was jokes, it was silly memes and crazy games, just, and now it's just.
I'm afraid to check it after the show, quite frankly.
It truly is. Waking up in the morning and I tried to even break
I
that habit
logged-
of checking social media in the morning, but it's
I logged off at the 1 o'clock yesterday.
you cannot, especially with the
shooting-
because
the
of the
shootings
incidents that
and-
took place over the weekend. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to be
I
on
don't even
social
know how
media.
to talk about that.
It's and I think that's
No,
the other thing.
That's fair.
And that's the other thing about social media. There isn't a way to talk about it. Like people are talking, conversations are being had, but
And I
it's
see it,
not.
and I was like, "Good luck with this post you'll see on your memories for whatever, because you're not going to do shit besides this post." And I don't know what you do. I don't know.
And I think and it's also the powerless feeling. I think there's a collection of people who truly feel there are things that are absolutely wrong, and they are powerless to do anything about it. And I think,
I mean, that's hard to deal with.
and that's
mentally.
very hard to deal with mentally. Like when you go
Good
online,
point.
when
The dopamine
people,
fixation is a very real thing.
because you have people online who
Where'd
have.
you hear that?
Shout out to Harrison
Oh.
and the.
Joe Rogan in our comments?
Apparently, he's showing up now.
He's about as ripped as Rogan, probably.
Well, yeah, I think that's the aspect too. I think it's knowing that these terrible things are happening. A lot of it is happening in your own backyard, and
And
there's
we know
nothing
it
you can do
sooner and
about.
quicker than ever now.
And then I think especially with the shootings this weekend, especially with
What
them happening back to back.
Do we?
That was
have you guys heard this?
Here's why
Have we
I-
talked about this stat yet? How few? And I've said, and I'm not trying to jump on as this stat becomes more relevant. Have you all seen the stat of the just tiny percentage of people that are on Twitter, and then as far as the U.S. population goes, and we've talked about this a million times, but then the actual numbers being so small as compared to the entire population,
Yeah.
and then of said population on Twitter, 2% or something of that 2% or whatever of the population that's on Twitter, a tiny fraction does 80% of the barking on Twitter. So you're taking one small control group, slicing it down even further, and then they have the loudest voices on Twitter. Does that make sense? So it
Yeah.
just shows
You're just going fraction
it's
upon
so
fraction.
correct, but it shows how easy it can be to feel that everyone thinks this or everyone does this, and it is numerically, statistically completely
At
incorrect.
least on social media.
At least on social media.
Because
No,
the
that are voice that are in
yeah,
that. It
'cause
doesn't mean
people
that
can
more people
feel
don't
like
think
that.
that.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
just saying, if you're basic, which I think that's very dangerous.
Well, I don't
'cause
think-
I've
I don't
done
think
it
people
too.
base it off- I don't
One
think-
bad thing, you remember it. People say 30 good things. You're like, okay, whatever.
Well, but I think, but then you combine that with other sample sizes, though, as well. You talk about the conversations that take place every day, whether it's at work or at school, or the type of conversations that we're currently having. We're still having those conversations in real life. Like, we're still having the conversations about race and police brutality and about school shootings and mass murderers. Like, we're still having that conversation in real life, and people are still having those points of views. I think they're greatly highlighted on social media because you can have that direct form of communication. I think the thing that's made it difficult even for me, who are a person who is absolutely in love with the idea of what Twitter can be, it has been very tough over the last few weeks because you do feel powerless. Because I think when people are speaking, they're hoping there's subsequent action. There hasn't been.
So, like, for
I need
example,
to-
when you crushed me in the Great American Race, despite my amazing story last week, it's a woman going on Raleigh TV. I don't care if I said the N-word and I'd
Yeah.
say it again. If I'm a black dude who doesn't know that many white people, or a young 13-year-old black or whatever, someone not white, and you see that, I'm going to feel like everyone's like that. Like you might, which it might back up a few things that you had done, but then it also might provide some kind of shitty outlook that it sucks that you have now, right?
But I think if anything,
Because
sometimes
that
those
could make
moments
it feel like
validate.
it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think sometimes they can validate your
they can
point of view.
over-validate too.
Well,
Or-
but I think there are moments like you can't. America has an extensive
Well-
documented history of racism. So when we see someone on TV being racist,
Sure.
it isn't like, oh my God, I just discovered racism. It's
American
yeah, that's-
capitalism is built on slavery.
yes,
It is built on racism.
yes, very much
For
so.
those that went to worship and suck the cock of
Right.
American
Okay.
capitalism,
Yes.
know
It
that.
is, and it's based on that. So the idea
mean-
that it's not a surprise. I think
This
when we
is
see,
not debatable.
But when we see the Raleigh video, see something like that, and even to African Americans now over the last 3 years with this president, we're not surprised. We're not even angry as much as you may think. We're more upset that you are now coming over to realizing that despite evidence
why
and
didn't you
documented
believe?
history, why didn't you believe?
earlier?
Right. So that's where most of the frustration is
What
coming
took
from.
so
Isn't
long?
like, oh, now I know for sure that people are racist. It's, we've been saying this for years, and y'all have been laughing in our face. You've been mocking us. You've used snark, and you've used your attitude, and you've just completely said, shut up, sit down. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then when it happens live on television, whether it's the president or this woman in Raleigh,
I can
it's all
answer
of a
part of
sudden
that.
like, oh my goodness, now people are getting upset. They're going on Twitter getting angry about it. It's just like, we kind of been talking about it.
Protesters, get a job.
And it's like, and the people have had these same feelings towards either our government or society long before social media, long before the internet. If anything, it's connecting people more. But as far as bringing the conversation back to social media in general, it's come up to a point where you're going to have to take it in teaspoons, because especially like this weekend. This weekend was, from a news
You
standpoint,
talk about
that's
a feeling,
impossible
a
to
feeling
survive.
of helplessness.
Yes.
I walked out of that exhibit,
at the Missouri History Museum.
turned my phone back on. I had turned it off. And when
Zero
I-
texts because you're not important to anyone.
Correct.
Very true.
Turned it on.
It's like all of us.
Hopped on Twitter
feeling
while,
in the world, right?
while I went to look
Come out
for
of a movie theater and nobody texts you.
I've been asleep for 8 hours. I bet my phone's blowing up. Not even a mom.
Once upon a time in America, it's 2 hours 40 minutes. No one can
No one?
contact me in
No
2 hours
care.
and 40 minutes.
Right.
Mom didn't even want to see how
Come
I'm
on.
doing. What's going on?
No, but I walk out of that, and I said it left me in an interesting mood, and I pop on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then I see the shooting in El Paso. That's what I saw coming out of there.
And you're gonna have to. You're gonna
the
have
walk back was good for me.
It
A
is-
walk was probably good at that.
to. And I think that's
because
what
I
the-
started trying to look and
Yeah.
like you're like I just got through all this, and this is what I open up to, and you're just looking at humankind as like,
And you know what it is.
Canceled.
And you
figure
know
it out yourself, guys.
And you know what it is
I'm done.
also. And you know what also it is. The biggest thing for me, it's a bad rerun. It's bad reruns. Like, so even like not even the incidents, but the commentary. So it's almost like cyclical. It's like, okay, we know the shooting's going to happen. Then we know these 10 people on the left are going to say this. 10 people on the right are going to say this. The president and the government are going to say this. And then we're going to forget about it in 2 weeks.
But no,
and then we start it back up again when it's another mass shooting, and the left is going to, the same 10 on the left will say this, and the same 10 on the right will say this, and you have the so that's the thing that's even more frustrating is like it's like Groundhog Day.
I got a really
it's
weird
horrible Groundhog Day.
I got a really weird, messed up silver lining spot or light at the end of the tunnel. Throughout history,
silver linings cannot be messed up, Chris. You have to have it silver.
It's fucking messed up, man. Because of all this shit and where we're at and where it feels like we're at, I feel like humanity finds a way. And whether, hey, it may not matter because
Are you doing Jeff Goldblum?
There may
He's about to. He's about to say life.
Wait.
Finds a way.
Am I smoking a cigar inside of an alien ship right now? Which movie is this? Could I slip into Goldblum in Zissou?
Please don't disrespect. Don't disrespect Goldblum like that.
No, the one thing that I've not seen, because right now, and just let me finish before you come shooting back. Right now, I don't think Democrats have a fucking chance. I don't think that it's going to work. I think people are still a little too blind to think. I'm just saying, with all this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you got to let me finish.
Okay.
Can I finish? Ross Perot, where are you when we need you, bro?
He's dead.
Yeah, he is.
Well, maybe he'll be reanimated by
Walt Disney.
Elon Musk.
No. Okay.
So here's my point. Even though we could slip right back into another 4 years of however you feel about Trump being in the office or whatever, craziness, right? Feels like there's a lot of nutso stuff going on. At some point.
Well, there is.
Correct. At some point, people find a way to beat things all the time. All the time. It's the truth. Whether you end up on the good or bad side of that, history, whatever. Mm-hmm. Sensibility has to be right around the corner, or it truly is.
But what's sensibility, though? Sensibility.
Not doing 10 and 10.
Here's the thing.
Not doing 10 and 10
People
when there's.
used to consider sensibility moderate or in the middle. Right. That's gone.
When I'm saying
if you're a moderate,
I'm saying
you're doing no
harm.
I'm with Gardner. Gardner's right. I talked to a moderate this week, and I never wanted to run out of a room so fast in my entire life.
I've been that person. I have voted Republican plenty of times.
I have as well, way before this election, last election, absolutely.
I have watched, I've observed, I've discussed with people.
Mm-hmm.
I know gay Republicans, plenty of them that I talk to. Moderation has no place at this moment in history.
Sensibility and fixing the issues you're talking about, rather than doing the 10 and 10, has
to
be around.
But what issues are you talking about?
And who's
because no one has come to the table.
And who's the quarterback?
That's what I'm saying. Someone has to show up.
But
here's the thing. And I'm going to stay with what happened over the weekend.
Okay.
Moderation has no place in that right now. Sensibility is what would be considered radical at this moment.
Well, then let it be radical.
I don't. Right. So I say we don't use that word sensibility. I say
I think I'll probably
get the
use
fucking
whatever.
done.
I think you can choose to take in vocabulary however you please.
Yeah.
But in my head,
trust I can spin whatever you say however I want.
I think the people. I think
in
the
my
people who
head,
talk to
someone has to come out and say, "Shut up," whatever else, and then here's what we're doing, and then it's like, that has to be around the corner, or we're gonna go, there it goes.
But that's the thing.
No, but
to Gardner's point,
you say life goes on until it doesn't.
Well, that's the thing, but I think Gardner hit the nail on the head. What is sensibility? There are people, a large amount of Americans, who strongly feel that this president isn't racist. You cannot start a conversation about changing the current dynamics of our country if you're not willing to accept reality. The reality, and I think, is if there's still and you're right, I think that's how the Democrats are in trouble, because there's still a vast majority of Americans who, despite his rhetoric, who, despite his policy, who still believe, for whatever reason, that this president doesn't have a racist bone in his body. And that's not where sensibility starts. Right, the least racist. Right. He's racist, but the least
in terms
racist.
Of the world rankings,
he's like 64 on the top 70.
They're not in my line for this potential sword in the stone.
But what I'm saying is the people. But here's the thing: is
see, now you understand.
But with that being said,
how I like it.
But a majority.
Arthurian.
But as we pointed out, over 63 million Americans had no problem voting for this president, and that's fine. You have your right to do just that, and you have an entire Senate, you have an entire party that's happy to back up the policies and the rhetoric of this president. So when I hear people say we need sensible people in the room, Well, every time I look up, there's nothing but a room of crazy people. But who are electing these crazy people? The so-called sensible Americans. So when Gardner says, what's sensible, I think that's the question. What is considered...
Well, who doesn't vote,
here's what I would tell you. What you consider moderate in the past no longer exists and will never exist again.
And
that's fine.
And I don't want a moderate exist anymore. The days of the moderate are over.
Which I think that's a problem.
The world is changing.
It has.
The world evolves.
It has evolved.
And if you want to stay stuck, then it passes you by and you become angry and you don't understand why it happens and then all this shit happens.
Right.
You have to understand that things evolve. Now, evolution doesn't necessarily mean progression either. It just changes. But you also can't just...
Think about that. Rhinoceroses used to have 4 horns.
Did they really?
I don't think they did. I think he's lying.
Be a lot cooler.
But I think
dangerous.
I think to Chris's point, I think people are willing to discuss. I think the issue isn't policy. I think that's the thing. People think this is a political debate. We're not having a political disagreement with this president. That's not what we're not having a political disagreement with Republicans or Democrats. It's not a political issue. It is a dogma issue. It's an issue of if someone who doesn't look like you agree with you, then they are problematic. That's a problem. And if that's how we're basing the way we decide how our country should be run, then we're going to continue to find ourselves in the type of situations that we found ourselves in this weekend, where we're having people take that hate, take the rhetoric that's been shouted over for the last 3 years, and now manifest that into violence. For people to just sit up here, but for people to consistently ignore that, when we sit up here, people are like, well, if somebody can just come down and give us an answer. Well, there have been people who have been trying to provide the answers for years. There are solutions, and we keep shouting them down for whatever reason.
Was it last week that the director of the FBI sat in front of Congress and told them that white nationalism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, homegrown here in this country, that is the biggest issue we are facing.
Biggest threat currently.
Told a Republican.
Biggest domestic terrorism threat.
It might have been Lindsey Graham who was asking it or questioning at the time.
Right.
Told you right there.
FBI had numbers. Showed that it was on a rise.
Look.
And then but that's the thing. But then what happened after that? Hold on. Before you go finish that, what happened after that was, and again, instead of acknowledging, you know what, the FBI director, he doesn't have to.
He's not trolling for votes.
He's not trolling. What happens? Ted Cruz proposes a legislation to investigate Antifa.
Well, just declare them a terrorist organization.
So I'm saying, it's like, okay.
Like, okay, you can hate Antifa, and I think they probably do some really bad shit. That's not what we're talking about, right?
Exactly. The FBI director.
About people that kill people.
Right? Exactly. And the FBI director, and that's where I think, to the point, I think that's where the sensible nature of our country has to step forward. I think Chris is right. We're gonna have to dig deep. And as far as, because he says that the sensible people ultimately win. And throughout American history,
I'm saying
generally hoping, right. And I think in order for that to happen, we are going to have to dig deep. A lot of me wants to be apathetic towards this, but we are going to have to dig deep.
Sensibility, moderation usually aren't your biggest voices, right?
True.
Right?
Generally correct. Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
I'm stereotyping in that way.
Sure. When I say sensible, by the way, you can be a bad motherfucker and be sensible.
You can also be a moderate and call out racist.
But
correct.
You have to say something. I think
you're getting it mixed up too much with the politicization of what we're talking about. I'm just saying I don't give a shit what they do. They just have to bring solutions to the table.
Right. My problem is
blow people out of the water, and nobody's doing that.
My problem is this: there's been solutions, there have been solutions, and there's still nothing been done.
Right.
Correct.
That's not
Which
sensible.
means our sword in the stone hero, whomever they are. You like that? See, I can play that.
Hey, well
That's
done.
right.
Well
yeah.
done.
I may find it arduous, but I can still do
Chris
it.
almost has a stroke.
Almost cut the stream and called 911.
Making one person comfortable almost killed him.
But I think the crowd yesterday, I think the governor of Ohio was giving a speech at one of the vigils in Dayton, and the crowd spontaneously erupted in a do something chant. Yeah. I think that's ultimately what Americans want. When it's said and done, they know that there's going to be details and things are going to have to. We understand that.
Do we stop yelling at them and just take to the streets and do it yourself? Like, is that how it
my
works?
thing is, I think as far as when you, in order to, and this is my leaning, in order to address gun control, there is going to have to be some political element. Not completely, but there is going to have to be some political element in order to make laws of the land where
they're going to make
guns,
illegal some of your guns. That's okay,
well,
and that's not illegal.
and,
like-
right, and like
there's
the gun that was
regulation.
right, the gun that was used in Dayton and then the Walmart shooting. I know a ton of gun enthusiasts. I close friends who own guns. I don't understand the capacity that was needed, and I think that's where the
Well,
do
let's just
something
make it-
crowd
let's
is coming
just have-
from.
Let's just let the good guys get them, and it just takes longer, and there's more. I'm serious when I say this. I know people that are
Right.
more
More
than capable.
guns is not the solution, though.
Point-
That's been proven.
Point
to be-
is, point is, it's limiting your dog's food with one of those things, right? It's like it can only get to so much at a time. So you should make it where it's a slow, arduous, super difficult, respected process that only an elite few get to enjoy. You decide whatever level of gun that is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one person in particular right now. I want him to have as many guns as he freaking wants because he deserves it. He's not gonna go off on one of those things.
Who?
But a guy who's into like tactical sports and stuff like that, who does it for whatever. My point being, if he's one of those people, we hash it down from say 80% of X amount of people are getting it down to 3% to get to have whatever level that is, that's fine. You just need to put these things in place that are going to make it way
Now-
more difficult and way more respected to the process.
think
And
you
you
just
know,
get-
and you,
I
and
don't
you
think
know
you
what,
should be able to just
and you know what?
wander around.
Everybody, and I'm not even trying to be funny. Everyone in St. Louis, everyone in Farmington and Red State, Missouri, will say to that, "You're infringing on my Second Amendment rights." Because once you tell me
I
that
think you just
only
get
a
rid of
select,
some of 'em.
like
Just
so,
get rid of
so
'em.
I'm saying is I completely understand that, but even as sensible, even as you broke that down, there's still a vast majority of Americans who strongly feel that is limiting their Second Amendment right,
And
therefore
some say God-given
some
right.
say God-given right. So
Which I roll my
therefore,
eyes at
they're
completely.
going to completely tell you. And that would be a good starting point. Maybe you go, okay, down to 3%. Well, how about 15?
No,
Maybe that
but
would have been.
here's
But they're
my-
not
I'm
going to
just
even
saying,
negotiate.
because you would be able
point.
to associate it that
My
most
point-
lazy fucks aren't going to go through a testing procedure, a mental health evaluation,
True,
however it goes.
true.
Gardner, what were you saying? Sorry, go ahead.
There is no time for negotiation on this or finding a
True,
middle ground.
true.
I'm not interested in a middle ground. I'm interested in eliminating things.
I'm fine with
And
that.
that's
But
what
I
you-
just think that fight is as we've seen throughout history,
Mi-
especially
middle
since Sandy
ground
Hook.
has no place for me right now.
I think someone said it, and then we can be off of it because I know we're coming up to the top of the hour. But I saw
The radio
there is
lingo
one
for you.
tweet
And we
that
got
I
a
did-
senator that still hasn't even commented on anything yet.
Right, and
I
that's
dem-
an entire.
and that is
differently-
unacceptable.
That's absolutely unacceptable. I completely agree with you there, Gardner. I think there's someone said that the conversation in regards to gun control changed post Sandy Hook, and once that was the window where we had the opportunity to bring about real, tangible, sensible gun control, and when that didn't happen, it's believed by a lot of people that's when we completely accepted.
Because they said
a
it's
reality.
okay to kill
If you
kids.
say it's okay to completely massacre 14, 15 kids and a teacher inside of an elementary school, and that wasn't enough for Congress to do something.
Well, let's
I mean,
say-
there's
then
empirical.
that's what we're up against as far as
it's
trying
simple.
to climb that hill.
There's empirical research in other countries of what and how they've responded to situations like this, what their rules are on guns that work.
We've had 200,
There's evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, we've
250 mass shootings halfway through 2019. That's do something. Again, I'm not sitting up here saying that I have the answer as to how to fix
saw
gun
it.
control,
My thing
but
is,
there's something
if
has
you're-
to be done.
If you're beating that mental health drum, if you're beating that it's the person, not the gun thing. Oh, this is me. Okay, show me massive, widespread
Right.
reform that gets people into facilities. I just watched a goddamn documentary on it. Shout out to Project Wake Up that gave horrific statistics.
Right.
It showed a guy
Right.
who's literally was. I don't even want to tell it because there's a nice twist to it.
But no, but to your
long
point-
story short,
right.
Utah, now a wildly pro-gun state, Utah enacted things that drastically reduced the number of suicides by gun owners. They said, we're not getting rid of guns. This ain't going to happen. We're going to do this thing that approaches it the right way.
Right.
And so then they can come back to you and say, here's what we did. Now show me that everywhere.
But-
so you just
right.
eliminate certain level of gun. That's all.
Right. Which again,
Let's get rid of it.
which would be where Chris's point. That would be a great starting point. And to Chris's point, the president came out and he mentioned mental illness. My thing is,
What does that mean?
one, what does that mean? And two, to your point, what are you planning on doing addressing mental illness then?
Yeah.
What
Did
are you
you-
pro-
did
what are
you-
you proposing that then says
Did you
people
start a 50-member
eliminating
task
Exactly.
force?
eliminating healthcare.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where the sensibleness, to Chris's point, where you're like, I don't know, because you're right. The president maybe could have took the step forward over the weekend and saying that, you know what, I'm calling an emergency session. Let's all sit down, because clearly mental illness is a huge issue right now currently.
I've
He has the
deployed-
power to do that. And my
But
thing,
even if you try to tie it to this, that's not necessarily true.
not.
exactly. And it's not true. So again, it's just like, so
And these
what
guys
are we?
probably would have passed tests too. Like, that's not-
Exactly.
So
And
that's not the fix.
Exactly.
So then you say, okay, well, your task force did. Mr. Businessman, treat it how you would treat a proposal that you put money into at a private business that didn't work for 3 years. What would you do with the person who's
What
ahead
is
of
it
that
gonna
And
committee?
I don't mind having the conversation about different elements of what lead to these situations, because they are layered. A lot of things are
it's
layered.
very layered.
And that's fine.
But doing
if
nothing-
there's
Wait a
a
second,
common
you sound-
denominator
Right.
Right.
in a mass shooting.
And that,
There's
and
a common denominator.
And doing nothing cannot be the. And again, I'm not saying that go grab the guns. I'm not even going that far. I'm saying though.
That depends
you-
on which ones. I'm okay with.
Certainly. But I think doing
luck.
nothing, just again,
it
to
would
bring
be
it back
difficult.
full circle with social media, just tweeting about it, just posting about it, just thoughts and prayers about it, that's not going to stop the next mass shooting. We have to treat this like the epidemic that it is, because if we don't, like, it's not only like I can't, there's no safe space. You don't know where to take your child. You don't know where to take your loved ones.
That's
one
scary, man.
was a food festival, and another one was at Walmart. How many of us have been to a Walmart and a food festival in the last 3
I
freaking
remember-
months?
Just even the theater thing. I
Yes.
remember
Is the answer yes? is the
Yes,
answer.
yes. The answer is yes. So it's
I
like
remember
it's just,
seeing
that's
it
the
in
thing.
Kansas City, walking into the theater to watch, what was it, the Batman with Bane.
yeah.
That
It happened in Aurora.
In Kansas City, wherever the hell I was seeing it, next to the Trader Joe's.
Well-
I'm watching the entrance the whole time.
Yes.
And I'm just like, ugh.
Well,
But-
you hear the good guy with the gun thing. Just look at the time, how long it took
in
for
Ohio,
this to get done.
it was 1 minute,
Under 30 seconds in one,
So let's
under
give
1
those-
minute
Under
in
one-
another.
60 seconds.
Let's give those good guys with the gun a little more of a chance, where people can't take out 20
So
people.
how about
before you
eliminate-
pull it.
Right,
No,
those
that's what I'm
kind of
saying.
capacity,
Yeah, right.
and that's the thing, and that's and like I said, I think there are and we can, again, I know I keep saying put a button on it, but because Chris really did make some good points. I don't know what the hell's going on and what he drank this morning.
Farmington sensibility.
It's something about that, but he's right. I think in order to,
Oh, Lair Dogs got to him.
but I think we
Lair
do-
dogs?
I think
Do you know you call my dad Lair Dog?
I would love to layer a dog. That's pretty funny. That's funny. 'Cause
He
that
just
is
turned
now,
off the pot. He's
He just-
listening to this.
he
12
won't-
I
hours
don't
from
like
now.
Gardner anymore.
Yeah, he won't layer dog. He call me layer
Don't-
dog.
don't care for
never
that
again. Don't
nickname.
care for it at all.
Yep, deleted. Subscribe no more.
But I think it is going to take it is going to take somebody to buck that trend. It's going to take somebody, and I don't want to necessarily point fingers as to how to get the ball rolling, but it is going to take somebody who maybe has NRA ties or someone who has ties to the Republican Party that's going to have to
It
be
won't
that
be Josh
voice.
Hawley.
You're
It
not
won't.
gonna-
You're not going to get a. You're not. Look. You're not. AOC ain't doing it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like the squad won't be the ones in front of this, because we already know that's going to be a non-starter for many Americans. So it's going to have to take. I'm sorry to say, it's going to have to take one of you white guys getting off your ass and saying,
Oh,
this is
you-
some bullshit. I'm not
that-
even trying to be
no,
funny.
no, no, no.
But that's what it's going to
Look
take.
no
It's going to take
further.
a white guy to say, all right, guys.
Well, he's right. He's
Look-
talking about a Republican, so
Look
he's
no further.
percentage-wise,
Look
he's
no
got a good shot.
further than weed and the heroin / what opiate thing. We're attacking this opiate crisis like it's crazy. Nobody did that for crack. To this day, people still don't understand that crack is cocaine. Like, they think it's this magical Negro devil dust. No, it's just like heated up cocaine. I've listened to 8 hours of conversation on it.
Yeah, we
My
knew that was
point
coming.
being,
Yeah, I
saw
like,
it.
look no
I saw
further.
it.
know where
For
you're
anyone
going.
that thinks Travis is just hipping and hopping his way through the conversation, look no further. Weed is cool now, man.
Hipping and hopping
And
through the
listen, hey,
conversation.
you ought to be pissed at your girl Kamala as she's like, I've tried weed, and how many people did she put away for weed? Get mad about that.
Thousands.
Thousands. So my point is, weed is now being sold in things that very much resemble Apple stores.
Yeah. They do.
Look no further. If you have a problem, Travis is a little bitch most of the time, but
Wait, what?
the
How do you
proof
sneak that
proof
in
is
there?
right there. You can't drive through rural Missouri without seeing a billboard for one, anti-abortion, and then two,
Jesus?
some
Oh.
sort of heroin something PSA. But let's fix this. You weren't fixing it. You're saying lock their
I ain't seen
fucking
no.
ass up.
I should have seen no crack billboards in the
We
hood.
do.
All
They're
I
like,
saw.
yeah.
Who's that crack? Bake.
Right.
See you in 25 years.
Let's do
So-
anti-crack billboards on 70 out in
Yes.
Columbia.
Right. That should work
People
well.
go, what?
in
Yeah.
between the
I don't-
Mizzou signs.
Wait, they're here?
in between the M-I-Z-Z-O-U
Oh my God, are they moving
signs.
in?
Look no further than the reduction in meth busts south of St. Louis once we got after it. 257 to 30? Wasn't it really drastic? Because we care.
This year was 16, I think. So
Hmm?
far.
We've got your meth updater.
Jefferson
Can we
County.
get that sponsored, do you think? Our
And that's-
meth counter.
And the funny thing about this whole entire situation,
Sponsored by Anheuser-Busch.
the funny thing is,
Don't do meth. Drink more
Methology.
beer.
white men always want to be the superheroes. They want to
it
be the
is.
pro. No, here's the thing: is I'm saying is you actually have the opportunity to be an icon, an historical, generational icon
I've
right
never
now.
wanted to be a superhero.
I think they're
I'm only inundated with female superheroes and black superheroes these days. Travis, that's all I know.
nice. You woke.
You can get those braids done in Wakanda, man. I got my Wakanda vacation braids.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't either. Big thanks to St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out their podcast, Mental Health Matters. Big supporters of ours. And all joking, tomfoolery aside, be sure to drop them a line. They have a million different options if you do need to speak to someone or get into regular counseling. stlouiscounseling.org online. Shout out to all our other sponsors. Been a very fun day
Can I
today.
plug them too some more a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're coming look, people talk about seasonal depression a lot, and oftentimes this time of year, people just assume just because the sun's out and people are being social that this isn't part of seasonal depression time of year. So for those who are going through it and you just need a session to just get some stuff off your chest or clear your mind, make
You
sure you
okay?
talk to the folks at St. Louis Council. No, I just, this time of year, like people, it's very easy to, like when it's rainy and it's cold, people just assume, oh, now it's seasonal
So
depression
you're saying
season.
even somebody as dark and melanin filled as you, chocolatey goodness, could be suffering from some sort of
Could
issue.
be suffering from something. And a lot of times it's just having a conversation. Sometimes you bottle everything up and you're trying to have it with yourself. Share it with the good folks at St. Louis Council. They'll be more than happy to take care of you. And they're good people. They're very kind and generous. The word I've been using recently is generous. People who take the time to actually give a damn about what's going on with you. Those are generous people, and I appreciate those folks.
Oh,
So
well, there
keep
you
doing
go.
what you're doing, you human beings. I know life has been tough lately. The news is hard. So make sure you reach out to your loved ones and you say hello and check up on them. And do that for everybody. Just don't do that with those who
What's going
who
on
suffer
here?
from anxiety
did
or
you
depression.
slip him mushrooms at the break?
No, not at all. I
Did
think
Seth,
this is important.
Did Seth and the Hoosier
The
Sophisticate
coffee.
guys drop
Take a
by?
sip of his
No,
coffee.
I think with
Are you about to eat my eyes?
no, not even. Put some barbecue on
They're
it.
kind of
though.
cute
Could,
eyes. so
I
you gotta
watched him
watch
make
it.
that coffee. I wouldn't take a sip.
Okay, got it.
But no, I think with the kind of weekend that we had, I think it's very easy to just be like, F this all. And it's sometimes it's important for people to talk to someone.
But what if that's the solution, Travis?
F it all?
Do I need to? Do I need to read the?
Homo sapiens have outgrown their years.
Do I need to read the
That's
quote?
what
If,
Do
we're
I need to read
if
the quote?
NASA just comes out and
Yes,
holds a press
please.
conference, I want NASA to come out and go,
We're done.
we're done.
Like, listen.
hey, what?
Aliens
What?
come back. We're done here.
Wouldn't that be great if the head of NASA just go, hello, thank you all, international media, for being here. Appreciate everyone online.
We're going to
It's
end every
over.
show like this. Human consciousness is a tragic misstep
Oh,
in
no,
evolution.
here we go.
became too self-aware. Nature created an aspect of nature separate from itself. All right, we'll let it go. Shout out to Rust Cole and everybody else. We said it, and you'll hear an announcement hopefully tomorrow. Big announcements in the way that has direct correlation to Free Comedy Thursday. Big thanks to Gaslight and Schlafly for hooking it up last week as the unfortunate last-minute stuff with Southtown closing happened. But good news, we got some big announcements right around the corner for that. For Gardner here in St. Louis, for the great Marvis Morell, I'm Chris Denman. It's We Are Live. We're back tomorrow live at 8 a.m. We'll see you then.
Peace.